You know, you make literally thousands of choices every single day. But what if I told you that most of them aren't really yours? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the invisible systems that are designed to shape your decisions, a lot of the time without you even noticing. Let's dive in. So, let's start with a big one. How free are your choices really? I mean, it seems like a simple question, right? But the answer is, well, it's way more complicated than you might think. Just consider for a second everything from the coffee you picked this morning to the career path you're on. How much of that was a truly spontaneous, off-the-cuff decision? And let's bring it into your digital world, which is, let's be honest, most of our world. That awesome new song that just magically appeared in your recommended playlist, that super interesting article that just happened to pop up in your feed, was that just a happy accident, a lucky find? Or was it the end result of a system that was carefully built to nudge you in one very specific direction? All right, so let's start peeling back the layers here. We're going to unpack these hidden forces that are working behind the scenes, and we're going to start with the simplest, most subtle designs that quietly shape what we do every single day. Okay, so we're constantly making choices, right? It's nonstop. But how often do you really stop and think about the environment where you're making those choices? This gets to the core idea of what's called choice architecture. The basic framework of our options is often pre-built, kind of guiding us down a path we might not have even picked for ourselves. So this first layer of that architecture, it's something you almost never see, but it is incredibly powerful. And it works by tapping into a simple little quirk of human psychology. We almost always just stick with the default option. Let's see just how big of a deal this really is. You've seen this everywhere, I promise you. It's the power of that little pre-checked box when you're signing up for a newsletter. Our brains are kind of wired to take the path of least resistance, right? And having to actively change a choice that's already been made for you, that takes mental energy. Designers, policymakers, they know this inside and out, and they use it to shape our behavior on a massive scale. And the consequences can be, well, they can be life and death. Just look at organ donation. In countries with an opt-in system where you have to actively sign up to be a donor, the donation rates are often pretty low. But in countries with an opt-out system where you're a donor by default, unless you say otherwise, the rates are dramatically higher. But here's the really wild part. The default doesn't just change the numbers. It actually changes how we feel about the morality of the choice. Suddenly, opting out feels like a much bigger, more questionable thing to do. So, okay, if defaults can shape our tiny little individual choices, what happens when we zoom out, like way out? Who's setting the defaults for society? Who's designing the bigger systems, the political structures, the economic rules that decide what choices are even available to us in the first place? Now, this is not a new question, by the way. All the way back in the 1950s, a sociologist named C. Wright Mills was arguing that real power isn't really spread out among all of us. No, he said it's concentrated in the hands of a pretty small, interconnected group right at the very top of society. And Mills gave this group a name, the power elite. He said they were the leaders of three huge institutions: major corporations, the military, and the federal government. He argued that these leaders, they tend to share similar backgrounds, similar values, and they move pretty seamlessly between corporate boardrooms, the Pentagon, and Washington, D.C., all the while shaping national policy to fit their shared interests. So, does that idea still hold up? Well, a major study in 2014 looked at decades of U.S. policy decisions to find out, and the results? I mean, they were pretty staggering. They found that what average citizens wanted had basically a zero statistical impact on which laws actually got passed. But the preferences of the economic elite, their desires, showed a really strong correlation with what became law. So if this power elite sets the big rules of the game, what are their most powerful tools today? Well, this brings us to our third layer. This concentration of power has morphed into something totally new in the 21st century. It's not just about shaping laws anymore, it's about shaping you, using the data from your everyday life as the raw material. A scholar named Shoshana Zuboff gave this a name. She calls it surveillance capitalism. And it's a totally new kind of business model. See, it doesn't just sell products to you. Its main product is you. Or, to be more precise, it's predictions about what you're gonna do. It harvests your personal experiences as data to forecast your next move, and then it sells those forecasts to whoever wants to buy them. So how does this whole thing work?
Well, first, pretty much everything you do online is captured as data. Then, the system collects what Zuboff calls behavioral surplus. That's all the extra data that isn't actually needed to make the app or service work. This surplus is then crunched to build products that predict your future behavior. And here's the final and most important step. Those predictions are then used to subtly nudge your actions to guarantee a profitable outcome.
And this isn't some accident, it's literally by design. As researchers at Stripped have pointed out, these platforms are intentionally engineered with what they call deceptive design. That endless scroll, the constant notifications, it's all built to maximize your engagement, which in turn maximizes the amount of behavioral surplus they can collect from you. It's a feedback loop designed to keep you hooked. And look, this whole system is moving way beyond just showing you ads. It's now affecting major life opportunities. There are now algorithmic tools that screen, rank, and flat out reject job candidates before a human being ever even sees their resume. Your ability to get a job can be decided by these predictive systems. So you've got these three layers working on us: the subtle nudge of defaults, the huge societal blueprints laid out by elites, and this new predictive engine of surveillance capitalism, which is really their most powerful modern tool. Honestly, it can feel pretty overwhelming. Is all our agency gone? Is there any way to reclaim our choices? So let's just quickly put it all together. Our choices, they're not made in a vacuum. They are constantly being shaped by simple defaults, by these huge societal power structures, and by a whole new economic logic that makes money by predicting and shaping what we'll do next. So what's the answer? Well, C. Wright Mills, he had this really powerful idea he called effective freedom. He argued that real freedom isn't just about being left alone to do what you want. No, it's the ability to actively and intelligently participate in shaping the very institutions that control our lives. It's about demanding a seat at the table where the rules are written. And this might be the most important thing to remember. Shoshana Zuboff reminds us that none of these systems are inevitable. This isn't just technology progressing on its own. These are business strategies. They were meticulously designed and lavishly funded to achieve commercial goals. And because people built them, people can also understand them, challenge them, and ultimately change them. Which leaves us with one last really critical question. In a world where our choices have become the product being sold, how do we fight to remain the customer? Or even better, how do we become the citizen who has that effective freedom we were talking about? That's a question I think we all need to start asking.